We're scheduled later in the next hour to have the runner-up in Miss USA pageant. She lost because she was against Arizona having a state copy of the federal law. It's exactly a copy of the federal law. So she's going to be popping in with us. Ray McGovern's with us for this segment and the next. We really appreciate his time. Here's some other news. We had Congressman Ron Paul on yesterday. Ron Paul said inside sources told him Fed is panicking at mass awakening. And if Ron Paul says it, you can bank it. That's up on GCNlive.com, the article by Paul Joseph Watson. That's GCNlive.com. Okay, Ray, we've only got about 4 minutes here, 5 minutes the next segment. Again, very thankful for your time. You were finishing up with the situation with Iran. Netanyahu says they may strike. Talking to folks in intelligence, out of intelligence, with your ear to the ground. Is it on the front burner again, and what's the time frame? And then C, what will happen if we do attack?
Well, to address your last point first, Alex, it would be a catastrophe if we and or the Israelis attacked Iran. Among other things, they have the option of closing the Strait of Hormuz, through which about a third of the the traded oil goes through for the world. And talk about a recession. Well, it would throw the world into a tailspin, given the dependence on oil. The situation right now is highly interesting. The bottom line is that the Israel lobby has shown its power once again. And now get this. This is the important conclusion, at least from my analysis. Neither Israel nor the United States is terribly worried about a nuclear weapon in Iran. If they were, they would have welcomed this new tripartite deal between Brazil, Turkey, and Iran, which provides for fully half of the low-enriched uranium to go out of country into Turkey. Now, that's the uranium that would have to be refined to a higher degree to make a bomb. So if half of Iran's uranium is going out of country for a whole year, wouldn't you think that the Israelis and the U.S. would be happy about that?
Yeah, Iran is buckling. I mean, every time, going back, as you know, 5 years, they try to be friendly, they get slapped down.
Yeah. Well, what happened, as soon as this deal was announced, Hillary Clinton got up and said, no, we're not going to go that route. That's naive. What we're going to do is sanctions in the UN, and we're persuaded the Russians and the Chinese, and we're going to just get these guys. Well, that's really interesting, because you know what? The President of the United States encouraged the head of Brazil and the head of Turkey to work out this deal. And we have that in a letter from President Obama. You won't find this in the New York Times, by the way, but if you look in the Sao Paulo press there in Brazil, you'll see the text of a letter from the President of the United States, which says to the President of Brazil, from our point of view, a decision by Iran to send half of its low-enriched uranium abroad would generate confidence and reduce regional tensions by cutting Iran's stockpile.
So we're about to break, but to interrupt, correct me if I'm wrong, basically it's showing there's a fight going on inside the Obama administration and that they were trying to do something reasonable, but somebody else has come in and said, Yeah,
that's not going to wash in November, they said, because the lobby will object to that.
That is incredible.
It really is, and you won't find this in the New York Times, will you? But that's the text of the president's letter to Brazil. And Hillary Clinton and the other neocons and those particularly susceptible to influence from the Likud lobby have put the kibosh on what should be a very, very favorable, very encouraging development, namely for Iran to ship half of its uranium out of country.
So we're coming back with only 5 more minutes, but just fast when we come back. What's the game plan then?
The game plan is regime change. That's what they care about. And anything that will make Ahmadinejad look more reasonable or make Iran look better, they're against, because they don't care about the uranium. They care about regime change.
We'll talk about North Korea coming up.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
All right, we got the runner-up for Miss USA on, who lost because she is for states' rights. She's going to be joining us in the next segment. Ray McGovern, you've got the floor, former CIA top analyst. to the presidents. You wanted to finish up with the neocons admitting it's not about nukes in Iran, and then briefly the situation on the Korean Peninsula.
Sure. I think the most recent very clear indication of what bothers the neocons and the Israel lobby is in Tom Friedman's. He's a very much pro-Israel fellow. His op-ed in the New York Times yesterday, he's got a couple of lies in it. He says experts say that they still have enough uranium to do a nuclear weapon. That's wrong. The intelligence community does not say that. He also suggests that the Iranian facilities are not under UN inspections. That's wrong. What makes it clear is he's not interested in the uranium. He's interested in regime change, and he finishes up with that appeal. So what we need to realize here is that this whole thing is easily explainable. Why the U.S. and why the Israelis would not welcome the shipping out of half of Iran's uranium for reprocessing elsewhere is because they don't care about that. They care about regime change, and what they're trying to do is get that to happen largely through a lot of covert action, support of disparate groups within Iran, now openly acknowledged by a New York Times article yesterday, and that's what put the kibosh on the last deal. In October, Jundallah, one of the militant, dissident, actually insurgent groups in Iran, supported by Israel, us, UK, and Pakistan, killed 5 senior Iranian Revolutionary Guards generals, and that's what put the kibosh on the last deal. Now, it's interesting to see that the New York Times is advertising the same kind of activity now. We'll see how hard Israel and the United States tries to put the kibosh on this deal, which really should go through and would obviate the necessity.
So they're moving us towards war, doing everything they can to sabotage a peace process, and this will go down in history either way. Oh, wait, 2 minutes left, sir. North Korea.
Well, you know, Alex, it's really interesting because we don't have the whole story on what happened. It looks pretty sure that a North Korean torpedo did hit this South Korean ship, but the details have not been released. They've been given to the Russians and the Chinese, but not to us. The problem is that there's an armistice. There's not a peace agreement, and there are disputed territories. There are North Korean and South Korean fishermen fighting over crabs every year, and this is the season. And there are South Korean ships and North Korean ships, both killed or sunk. 1999, a North Korean ship went down with 30 killed and 70 wounded. So unless they get that shoreline and that international boundary delineated, this is going to keep happening. So this should not be blown out of proportion, and still less should Hillary Clinton use the same language used by Dean Acheson back in 1950, that this is, quote, unprovoked aggression, end quote. It may be a provocation. It may be retaliation. We just don't know yet.
But we know Kim Jong-il looks like a scarecrow, looks like death warmed over. So any time we could see a collapse of the regime, and who knows how that'll go. So it's another powder keg.
That's exactly right. No one really knows what's going on within that country, and so it's really hard to guess as to what the motivation might have been, other than the normal sort of jousting, the normal trying to head off ships from the other country.
Well, that's good news to hear that you're not as concerned about North Korea as the media has been hyping it to be. So we'll continue to watch that. I appreciate you coming on to cover what's happening all over the planet and the geopolitical breakdown. And I look forward to talking to Ray McGovern, a retired former senior CIA analyst, to the presidents. God bless you, sir. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited about our next guest, and we are going to open the phones up for her. A lot of supporters out there. Miss Oklahoma, the runner-up in Miss USA, and the media reported she would have won if she'd have been against states' rights. She'll be joining us coming up. We'll be right back. Infowars.com.